I remember exactly how cold that January night was when everything fell apart. My mascara-stained cheeks felt frozen as I sat in my car outside our apartment. Well, his apartment now, staring at the hastily packed duffel bag in my passenger seat. Just 3 hours ago, I had been making dinner in what I thought was still my home. Now, at 9:47 p.m., I was homeless because I refused to wear a 35-year-old yellow wedding dress. My hands were shaking as I tried to text my sister. The screen was blurry through my tears, but I managed to type, "Can I stay with you tonight?" He kicked me out. The three dots appeared immediately. Sarah didn't even ask why. She just sent her address and, "I am waiting outside." Hi, I am Amanda Chen, and 6 months ago, I was planning what I thought would be my dream wedding. I was 26, engaged to Mark Williams, 29, and working as a kindergarten teacher in Portland. We'd been together for 4 years, and I believed I'd found my forever person. You know that feeling when everything seems to fit perfectly? That's how it was, or at least, that's how I thought it was. We met at a friend's barbecue in 2020, right before the world shut down. Mark was charming, funny, and seemed so different from guys I'd dated before. He had a stable job as an accountant, owned his apartment, and wanted to settle down. When he proposed last summer with a beautiful vintage ring that had belonged to his grandmother, I thought I was living a fairy tale. The first time I met his mother, Patricia, she seemed sweet. Maybe a bit too involved in Mark's life, but I brushed it off. She called him 3 times during our first dinner together, and he answered every call. "She's just protective," Mark explained. "She's been alone since Dad died." I nodded sympathetically, ignoring the little voice in my head that whispered this might be a problem. Looking back, I should have seen the signs. The way Mark never made decisions without consulting her. How she happened to show up during our date nights. The passive-aggressive comments about my cooking, my career, and my family's Chinese background. But love makes you blind, right? And I was so in love, so excited to plan our wedding, that I pushed all those red flags aside. Everything changed the day Patricia brought over her wedding dress. It was a massive, puffy-sleeved monstrosity straight out of the 80s. The once white fabric had turned yellow with age, and the lace was falling apart in places. But the way she looked at it, you'd think it was a royal gown. "I've been saving this for my future daughter-in-law," she said, her eyes gleaming with what I now recognize as manipulation. I always knew my Mark would find someone worthy of wearing it. She held it up against me, not noticing, or not caring, how even Mark winced at the sight. "It just needs a few alterations. Maybe we can let it out a bit." That moment, standing there with this musty dress pressed against me, was the beginning of the end. I just didn't know it yet. What followed was 3 months of increasing pressure, guilt-tripping, and emotional manipulation that would ultimately leave me sitting in my car that cold January night, wondering how my life had imploded over a wedding dress. But I should back up a bit. Let me tell you exactly how I went from being a happy bride-to-be to a woman escaping in the middle of the night with nothing but a duffel bag and her dignity. The months after our engagement were like living in a dream. Well, at least the first few weeks were. I dove into wedding planning with all the excitement you'd expect from a first-time bride. My Pinterest boards were bursting with ideas: soft dusty blue and silver colors, fairy lights everywhere, and a garden ceremony that would take everyone's breath away. Our date was set for June 2025, giving us plenty of time to plan the perfect day. At first, Mark seemed just as excited. He'd peek over my shoulder while I scrolled through venue options, pointing at the ones he liked. "Look at this garden," I'd say, showing him pictures of a beautiful venue outside the city. "We could have the ceremony right there under that big oak tree." He'd smile and nod, and I'd feel my heart swell joyfully. But then Patricia started helping with the planning. It started small. She'd send dozens of links daily, venues she liked better, color schemes she thought were more appropriate, and endless suggestions about everything from the cake flavor to the type of chairs we should use. When I chose dusty blue for our color scheme, she spent an entire week sending me pictures of pink weddings because pink is more traditional. "Your mom seems involved," my sister Sarah commented one day while helping me address save the date cards. I shrugged it off. "She's just excited," I said, not wanting to admit how overwhelming it was becoming. But excited wasn't the right word. Controlling? That was closer to the truth. The real problem started when we began looking at venues. I'd found this beautiful garden venue that fit our budget perfectly. The owner was willing to give us a great deal because my cousin had gotten married there last year. But Patricia had other ideas. "The country club is the only acceptable venue," she announced during what was supposed to be a casual Sunday dinner. "I am already on the board there, and they'll give us a special rate." The special rate was still twice our budget, but Patricia waved away my concerns. Money shouldn't matter for Mark's special day. Notice how she said, Mark's special day, not our day, not my day too, just his. Mark sat there silently, pushing his food around his plate, avoiding eye contact. When I tried to discuss it with him later that night, he just sighed. "Maybe Mom has a point, the country club is nice." That's when I started noticing how often he said those words. Maybe Mom has a point. Mark always deferred to his mother's opinions, whether it was about the venue, the guest list, which kept growing with Patricia's friends, or the menu choices. I tried to compromise. I did. When Patricia insisted on adding 50 of her bridge club friends to the guest list, I agreed to consider it. When she demanded we have a traditional 5-tier fruitcake, which neither Mark nor I even like, I suggested we could have a small fruitcake tier just for her. But nothing was ever enough. Every compromise I offered was met with more demands, more guilt trips, and more passive-aggressive comments about how some brides just don't understand family traditions. The breaking point with the wedding planning came during what should have been one of the happiest moments, dress shopping. I'd saved up for months to buy my dream dress, planning a special day with my mom, sister, and best friend. We had appointments at 3 boutiques, and I was so excited I could hardly sleep the night before. That morning, as I was heading out the door, my phone buzzed with a text from Patricia. "Don't bother with those expensive boutiques. I already have the perfect dress for you." I felt my stomach drop. I knew exactly which dress she meant. That yellowed, mothball-scented 80s gown she'd been casually mentioning for weeks. But I pushed that thought aside. This was my day to find my dress, and I was determined to enjoy it. Little did I know that a dress shopping trip would set off a chain of events that would change everything. That Saturday morning at the bridal boutique started like a dream. The consultant, Emily, was amazing. She listened to everything I wanted. Something elegant, fitted, with delicate lace details. My mom, sister, and best friend Amy were all there, champagne glasses in hand, ready to help me find the perfect dress. The first few dresses were nice, but not quite right. Too puffy, too plain, too much bling. But then Emily brought out this gorgeous A-line dress with the most beautiful lace sleeves and a subtle shimmer in the fabric. The moment I put it on, I knew. You know that feeling when something is just perfect? This was it. When I walked out to show everyone, my mom burst into tears. Sarah couldn't stop smiling, and Amy just kept saying, "Oh my God," over and over. Even Emily seemed excited. "This dress was made for you," she said, adjusting the train. When I looked in the mirror, I felt like the bride I'd always dreamed of being. The price was exactly within my budget. I'd been saving for months from my teaching salary. Without hesitation, I said yes to the dress. We took pictures and popped more champagne, and I felt on top of the world. That's when my phone started buzzing. First came the text from Patricia. "Don't you dare buy anything. We need to talk." Then another. "Mark tells me you are at a bridal shop. You are making a huge mistake." And another. "I've already altered my dress for you. This is so disrespectful." I tried to ignore the messages, to stay in my happy bubble. But then Mark called. When I didn't answer, he called my mom, then my sister, then Amy. Finally, I stepped into a corner to take his call. "Mom's upset," he said, his voice tense. "She's crying. How could you do this to her?" "Do what?" I asked, feeling my joy deflating. "Buy my wedding dress?" "You know she wanted you to wear her dress. She's been planning this for years." "Mark, I never agreed to wear her dress. It's not even my style, and it's falling apart." "It's tradition," he insisted. "Mom wore it. Her mother wore it." "But I am not them," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "This is our wedding, not your mom's." That's when I heard Patricia's voice in the background. She was at his place. "Let me to her," she demanded. Before I could protest, she was on the phone. "Cancel that dress order right now," she commanded. I won't let you disrespect our family traditions like this. That dress probably looks horrible on you anyway. You are not built like a proper bride. I felt like I'd been slapped. Emily and my family were watching me with concern as tears started rolling down my cheeks. Patricia, I said firmly, I am buying this dress. It's my wedding too. Then you don't love my son enough to be part of this family. She hung up. What happened? Cancel that dress order right now, she commanded. I won't let you disrespect our family traditions like this. That dress probably looks horrible on you anyway. You are not built like annexed was chaos. Mark started bombarding me with texts about how selfish I was being. Patricia posted on Facebook about ungrateful modern brides who don't respect tradition. She even called the bridal shop trying to cancel my order. Thank goodness they refused to talk to her without my permission. I went home that evening to find both Mark and Patricia waiting in our apartment. The beautiful dress was hanging in its garment bag, but I didn't feel excited anymore. Patricia had brought her dress too. It was spread out on our couch, yellow and musty. Try it on, she demanded. Right now. Show us why it's not good enough for you. Mark just stood there, arms crossed, watching as his mother berated me. When I refused to try on her dress, Patricia lost it. She started pulling at the garment bag with my new dress, trying to open it. Stop, I yelled, pulling it away from her. You are going to ruin it. Good, she screamed. You ruined my dream of seeing my dress walk down the aisle again. You ruined everything. That's when Mark finally spoke up, not to defend me, but to say something that broke my heart. Maybe we should postpone the wedding until you learn to respect our family traditions. I looked at him, this man I thought I knew, and realized he was a stranger. There won't be a wedding, I said quietly. Not if this is what being part of your family means. The silence that followed was deafening. Patricia stood there, mouth open in shock. What did you just say? She demanded, her voice shaking with anger. I looked at my dress, still safely in its garment bag, then at Mark's face. He wouldn't even look at me. I said there won't be a wedding, I repeated, stronger this time. I can't marry into a family where I am not respected. You ungrateful little, Patricia started, but I cut her off. I am done being grateful for being treated like this. I am done apologizing for wanting my wedding dress. I am done watching Mark choose his mother over his future wife every single time. That got Mark's attention. That's not fair, he snapped. Mom just wants what's best for us. No, Mark, she wants what's best for her, and you are too blind to see it. I started walking toward our bedroom, planning to pack a bag and stay with my sister. But Mark grabbed my arm, spinning me around to face him. His face was red with anger, an expression I'd never seen before. You don't get to walk away from this, he growled. Either you wear the dress and apologize to my mother, or you can get out, for good. The apartment fell silent. Even Patricia stopped her ranting. I looked at Mark's hand on my arm, then back at his face. This wasn't the man I fell in love with. This wasn't the man I wanted to spend my life with. Let go of me, I said quietly. Not until you apologize. Mark, my voice was trembling now, you are hurting me. He looked down at his grip on my arm, seeming surprised by his actions. He let go quickly, leaving red marks on my skin. That's when I knew it was over. I walked to our bedroom, grabbed my emergency bag, the one I'd packed weeks ago but told myself I'd never need, and my dress. Mark followed me, alternating between angry demands and desperate pleading. You are overreacting, he said. It's just a dress. No, I replied, surprisingly calm now. It's not just a dress. It's about respect. It's about standing up for yourself. It's about being with someone who puts you first. Patricia appeared in the doorway. If you leave now, don't think you can come crawling back when you realize what you've lost. I looked at her, then at Mark, who was still standing there silently. The only thing I am losing is the illusion that this was ever going to work. As I walked toward the front door, Mark finally moved. You can't take that dress, he said, reaching for the garment bag. I paid for half of it. I pulled out my phone, opened my banking app, and transferred his portion of the dress payment back to his account. There, now it's mine. You are making a huge mistake, he called after me as I opened the door. No one will ever love you like I do. I turned back one last time. You are right. I hope no one ever loves me like this again. The door closed behind me with a final click. My hands were shaking as I carried my bags to the car, but my mind was surprisingly clear. The January air was freezing, but I barely felt it. All I could feel was relief and grief. Relief that I was getting out, grief for the future I thought I'd have. I sat in my car for what felt like hours, watching the lights in his apartment window. I could see their shadows moving around, probably talking about what a terrible person I was. Finally, I picked up my phone and texted my sister. "Can I stay with you tonight?" He kicked me out. Sarah's response was immediate. "I am already on my way to get you. Don't move." 20 minutes later, Sarah pulled up beside me. She took one look at my face and the bags in my car and didn't ask any questions. She just hugged me tight and said, "You did the right thing. Let's go home." As we drove away, I watched our apartment building disappear in the rearview mirror. 3 years of my life, gone over a wedding dress. But it wasn't really about the dress, was it? It was about respect, boundaries, and standing up for myself. And somehow, losing everything felt like gaining something much more important, my self-respect. The next morning, my phone was flooded with messages. Mark had already posted his version of events on Facebook, making me sound like a bridezilla who broke his mother's heart. Patricia was sharing it everywhere, adding her dramatic comments about ungrateful modern women and disrespect for family traditions. My sister found me crying over my phone at her kitchen table. Without a word, she took it from my hands and turned it off. "Social media detox," she declared, sliding me a cup of coffee. "You don't need to see any of that right now." But the drama wasn't just online. By noon, my work voicemail was full. Patricia had somehow gotten my principal's number and called to express concerns about my character. Thankfully, my principal, who had dealt with her share of difficult parents, saw right through it. "Take a few days off," she told me kindly. "Your students will be fine, and you need time to sort things out." The hardest part was calling all the wedding vendors. Each cancellation felt like another little heartbreak. The venue manager was surprisingly understanding. "Honey," she said, "better to cancel now than divorce later." The caterer wasn't as nice. We lost the deposit, but honestly, I was too numb to care about money at that point. Then came the ring situation. Mark's grandmother's ring, the one that had felt so special when he proposed, now felt like it was burning a hole in my finger. I took it off and put it in an envelope, planning to mail it back. But Mark had other ideas. He started showing up at places he knew I'd be. The coffee shop near work, the grocery store I always used, and even my favorite bookstore. Each time, he'd swing between begging me to come back and accusing me of ruining his life. "Mom's devastated," he'd say. "She's had to start taking anxiety medication because of you." Or, "I'll never forgive myself for letting you leave. Please, just talk to me." And then, "You are selfish and cruel. You never deserve to be part of our family." My friends split into 2 camps. Most supported me completely. My best friend Amy started a group chat called Team Amanda, where they'd share funny memes and words of encouragement. But a few others thought I was overreacting. "It's just a dress," my college roommate Rachel said. "Was it worth throwing away your relationship?" What they didn't understand was that it was never just about the dress. It was about control, respect, and standing up for myself. The dress was just the final straw. The worst came about a week after I left. I was picking up some more clothes from the apartment while Mark was supposed to be at work, but Patricia was waiting for me. She'd used her spare key, the one I didn't know she had. "You've ruined everything," she spat, following me around as I packed. Mark's father never would have allowed this kind of disrespect. I kept packing silently, trying to tune her out. But then she grabbed my wedding dress, which I was finally there to collect. "If I can't have my dream of seeing my dress at my son's wedding, you won't have yours either." She started pulling at the garment bag zipper. That's when something in me snapped. I'd been polite, I'd been patient, I'd been understanding, but no more. "Touch that dress," I said, my voice deadly calm, "and I'll call the police. You are trespassing, and that would be destruction of property." She froze, shocked by my tone. I took advantage of her surprise to grab the dress and my last few belongings. As I walked to the door, she called after me. "You'll regret this. Mark needs a real woman, someone who understands family values." I turned back one last time. What Mark needs is therapy and boundaries, and what I need is to never see either of you again. That night, I did something both terrifying and liberating. I filed for a restraining order. Their behavior had escalated from emotional manipulation to harassment, and I needed it to stop. The police officer who helped me file the paperwork looked at the red marks on my arm from where Mark had grabbed me, still visible a week later, and said I was doing the right thing. "We see this more often than you'd think," she said kindly. "You are brave for getting out now." Brave. That wasn't a word I would have used to describe myself a week ago, but sitting there in the police station, protecting myself and my future, maybe that's exactly what I was being, brave. The first week after getting the restraining order, I barely left my sister's apartment. I'd scroll through old photos, cry over random things, and wonder if I'd made a huge mistake. One minute I'd feel strong and certain, the next I'd be doubting everything. "You need to get out," Sarah finally said one morning, pulling open the curtains I'd kept shut for days. "We're going to lunch." I didn't want to go. The thought of running into Mark or Patricia somewhere in town made my stomach churn. But Sarah was right. I couldn't hide forever. That first lunch turned into a weekly tradition. Every Saturday, Sarah would drag me to a new restaurant. Sometimes other friends would join us, sometimes it was just us sisters. Slowly, I started looking forward to these outings instead of dreading them. Then came the question of what to do with my dress. It hung in Sarah's spare closet, a beautiful reminder of a future that would never happen. Every time I saw it, my heart would ache a little. "You could sell it," my mom suggested during one of our daily phone calls. But something about that didn't feel right. Then I remembered Lisa, my cousin who'd just gotten engaged. She was struggling to find a dress in her budget. One afternoon, I invited her over. "Try it on," I said, pulling out the dress. "If you love it, it's yours." Watching Lisa's face light up when she saw herself in the mirror, that was the first time I felt real joy since everything happened. The dress that had caused so much drama would now be part of a happier love story. I started seeing a therapist, Dr. Martinez, who helped me understand what I'd been through wasn't normal or okay. "You are not just dealing with a broken engagement," she explained. "You are recovering from emotional abuse." Those words hit hard. Abuse. I'd never thought of it that way, but she was right. The control, the manipulation, the isolation, it was all there. I just hadn't seen it because it happened so gradually. One day, going through old journals, I found entries from early in our relationship. They were full of little things I'd brushed off. Mark checking my phone when he thought I wasn't looking. Patricia accidentally showed up during our dates. Mark got angry if I spent time with friends without him. "Write it all down," Dr. Martinez suggested. "Every red flag you missed, every boundary they crossed, not to punish yourself but to learn from it." So I started a new journal. I called it my Never Again list. Each entry helped me see the pattern more clearly. It wasn't just about the wedding dress, that was just the final thread in a long tapestry of control and manipulation. Healing wasn't linear. Some days I felt strong and empowered. Other days I'd cry in my car because a song reminded me of Mark, or I'd panic when I saw a car that looked like Patricia's. But slowly, things started changing. I joined a support group for people who'd left toxic relationships. Hearing other stories helped me feel less alone. One woman there, Jenny, had left her husband of 15 years because of his controlling mother. Her story was so similar to mine that it was scary. "You are lucky you saw it before the wedding," she told me. "I wish I'd had your courage back then." I started trying new things Mark and Patricia would have disapproved of. I took a painting class. Apparently, I am terrible at it, but I love it anyway. I dyed my hair purple. Just the ends. I still had to look professional for teaching. I started salsa dancing classes with Amy. Each new experience felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. The woman who'd left that apartment in tears 3 months ago was becoming someone stronger, someone who knew her worth. The biggest surprise came from my 5-year-old students. Kids can sense when something's wrong, and they know I am sad. One day, little Sophie brought me a drawing of what looked like a purple blob with a crown. "It's you," she explained, "because you are brave like a princess in the stories." That drawing now hangs on my fridge, reminding me that sometimes the best support comes from the most unexpected places. It's been 6 months since that cold January night when I drove away from what I thought was my future. People often ask me if I regret how things ended. The honest answer? The only thing I regret is not leaving sooner. Looking back, I can see now that a wedding dress doesn't make a marriage, and a ring doesn't guarantee love. What matters is respect, support, and having a partner who chooses you, not just on special occasions, but every single day. Last week, I ran into Mark's cousin at the grocery store. She told me Mark and his mom are still living together, and he's taking time to heal. Patricia has already started showing her wedding dress to his new girlfriend. I just smiled and wished them well. Genuinely. Because that's not my story anymore. The money I'd saved for the wedding? I used it to put a down payment on my little apartment. It's tiny compared to where I lived with Mark, but every decoration and every color choice is mine. No one tells me the curtains are wrong or that my throw pillows don't match. It's my space, my rules, my peace. Remember Lisa, my cousin who took my wedding dress? She got married last month. When I saw her walking down the aisle in that dress, looking radiant and loved, surrounded by people who genuinely supported her, I didn't feel sad. I felt grateful. What was meant to be a symbol of my unhappiness became part of someone else's joy. My purple hair has faded. Turns out maintaining bright colors is a lot of work, but my love for painting hasn't. I am terrible at it, but tea here is something freeing about creating something just for yourself, not caring if anyone else likes it. My apartment walls are covered in my awkward attempts at art, and every piece reminds me that it's okay to be imperfect. The restraining order expired last month. My lawyer asked if I wanted to renew it, but I didn't feel the need. Mark and Patricia's power over me expired long before that legal document did. They're just people now, not the monsters that haunted my dreams, not the voices in my head making me doubt myself. Just people who chose control over love and lost both in the process. To those of you watching who might be in a similar situation, whether it's with a partner, a future in-law, or anyone who makes you feel small, please hear me. You deserve better. Your feelings are valid, your choices matter, and it's never too late to choose yourself. Someone once told me that leaving isn't giving up, it's choosing to move forward. At the time, I didn't fully understand what that meant. Now I do. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from what's hurting you, even if that means leaving behind the future you thought you wanted. I am not dating right now, and that's okay. I am learning to love my own company, to trust my instincts, and to recognize red flags before they become relationship-ending problems. When I do start dating again, I'll know what I want, and more importantly, what I won't accept. To everyone who's supported me through this journey, my family, my friends, my students and their parents, even strangers on the internet who shared their own stories, thank you. Your kindness helped me find my strength. And to those of you watching who might be struggling with a toxic relationship or facing a difficult choice, you are stronger than you know. Your story isn't over just because one chapter ended badly. If this story resonates with you, please share it. Not for the likes or views, but because somewhere out there, someone might need to hear that they're not alone. That it's okay to say no to things that don't feel right, even if everyone else is pushing you to say yes. Remember, a wedding is just one day, but your self-respect is forever. Drop a comment below if you've ever had to make a tough choice for your happiness. Let's create a community of support and understanding. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to hear more stories of growth and resilience. Thank you for listening to my story. Here's to choosing ourselves, setting boundaries, and finding the strength to start over when we need to.